What's good, everyone? It's Nigel here, Trinidad Empowerment Network, and the UNC has done it. The people have spoken. Like I anticipated, like I told you, the people have indeed spoken. I told you this was going to be a protest vote, and the people indeed voted like the way I expected. And I didn't predict this because I am some sort of genius, like I believe I am. I'm not. The general election ended in a massive victory for the United National Congress. So first and foremost, we must congratulate them, to the UNC and to every citizen who exercised their democratic right to vote. Well done for doing so. In any healthy democracy, the will of the people must be respected, and so the people of Trinidad have respected the win from the UNC. I expected this. I anticipated this. I looked at the global landscape. This has happened worldwide. This has happened just about in every country on the planet, including America, Great Britain, Germany, you name it. The incumbent government took a beating, and this time it happened again. But let's take a moment to reflect, shall we? While the celebrations continue, we must confront a sobering reality. And this is perhaps the most challenging period to assume leadership in our nations any nation, to be fair, but especially so in Trinidad and Tobago, a country that's so reliant on imports from its big brother, its father, America. We play lip service to America. We saw this play out in the Dragon's gas deal. America said no, and we said, okay, sir. Why? Because the global economic landscape is undergoing seismic shifts that directly impacts Trinidad and Tobago. Donald Trump reinstated tariffs on major trading partners like China, Mexico, Canada, and these tariffs are sending shockwaves through the global market. No one's ever seen anything like it before. But of course, unlike what Donald Trump has been saying, these tariffs have led to retaliation. It was always going to lead to retaliation. China was not going to take this lying down. Mexico wasn't going to take this lying down. Canada wasn't going to take this lying down. The EU wasn't going to take this lying down. So there's been a massive disruption in global supply chains. And we see this in prices inflating worldwide. Trinidad is absolutely not immune from these price hikes. It's coming to Trinidad. If it hasn't reached already, you will see higher prices in your supermarkets, in your groceries. It's coming. And it's going to be severe. I don't want to burst your bubble. People are still celebrating, but prepare yourself for inflation. Food security is at risk. Our nation imports approximately 60% of its food supply, mainly from America. 60% of its food supply, mainly from America. With the US imposing tariffs on countries that are integral to our supply chain, the cost of essential goods is only going to rise. So, for instance, tariffs on Chinese goods have led to an increase in prices for electronics and machineries, which are vital to Trinidad's industries. So, there's an indirect effect on Trinidad because of the tariff. The tariff is a tax, by the way, because of the tax Trump has put on these countries. It leaves our economy vulnerable because of our heavy reliance on imports, which makes us susceptible to global market fluctuations. We rely too much on imports, way too much. We should be self-sufficient. We're not. the Caribbean region, including Trinidad and Tobago, is experiencing heightened inflationary pressures due to the tariff, the tax Trump has applied on the world, essentially. This is why I say whoever takes leadership, we now know the UNC, is in for a very, very rough 4 years unless we make some immediate changes. To the supply chain disruptions, the tariffs have caused significant disruption in global supply chains. Significant disruptions. Uncertainty has been the biggest effect as well because Trump has been all over the place. Man is clearly clueless. This has affected the availability of and the cost of goods, clearly. So the instability, like I've just mentioned, poses a threat to our economy and the stability of our economy and the growth of our economy. And in light of these challenges, it's imperative that we diversify our trading partners. We cannot stay reliant on America. I do not see the current government in Trinidad doing that. So we'd end up staying reliant on America. Anything that affects America affects us. We need to reduce our dependence on traditional partners, mainly America, and explore new markets. Africa, BRICS, the BRICS pact, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. In order to mitigate the damages that's coming our way, we need to diversify our trading partners. We need to enhance local production. We need to invest in ourselves. We need to invest in local industries to boost self-sufficiency. We need to become self-sufficient. We need to rely on ourselves, particularly in agriculture and manufacturing. Those are lacking. I know I'm sounding like a stock record because most of you watch my videos, see me talk about this all the time, right? We need to strengthen our regional corporations, collaborate with neighboring Caribbean nations to develop resilience, better economic strategies, and shared resources. I haven't seen any of this in the current government's manifesto. Maybe they are still rewriting or writing it. I hope they do see this video and include some of it in their video. Share it to them if you wish. We're here to make Trinidad better. Doesn't matter who you support. So the road ahead is fraught with challenges, in my opinion. But I believe with unity and foresight and decisive actions, we can navigate these turbulent times. We have to, at some point, seize the moment to build a more resilient, self-reliant Trinidad and Tobago. We need to build a more resilient, self-reliant Trinidad and Tobago. We need to be self-sufficient. We must stop relying on America. We have to stop relying on America. Because the minute America falters, we suffer. The Dragon's gas deal was a prime example of that. We fell foul to geopolitics on the Dragon's gas deal. It wasn't local politics, it was geopolitics. We fell foul to America said no, and our government had to oblige. That should not be happening to a sovereign nation, which is what we are, a sovereign nation. We do not bow down and kowtow to America. We should not, but we do because we do so much trade with them. They say jump, we say how high, sir. This has to end. I see none of this happening with the current regime in Trinidad and Tobago. So this is why I say we are in for a long, tough 4 years unless we change or we make a drastic change in direction. Because there's no real substantive change that's going to happen to Trinidad. No one's talking about taxing the wealth in Trinidad. No one's talking about taxing the foreign investors in Trinidad. They get away with well, I don't want to say I don't want to be demonetized. They get away with everything in the Caribbean, and we allow them to. We need leaders. We don't need managers. We need leaders. We need leaders. We need people like Ibrahim Traore. Look him up. The leader of that great African country, Burkina Faso. We need tough leadership. And I don't see this with this current regime. So, I've outlined the things that needs to be done. These are the things you probably need to look for in the current regime's manifesto in Trinidad. However, you'd be looking a very long time because these are things you are not going to find. At the end of the day, Trinidad needs money. And in order to get that money, we have to do some simple things, basic things. We have to take some of that money from the people who harbor it and take that money from our country and put it into offshore accounts and offshore banks, tax havens, money that go undeclared. Just the small amount of tax that people pay, the likes of BP paying 3% tax to the Trinidad government. 3% tax they pay to the Trinidad government, whilst they make billions a year. I believe 1.5 billion, the record shows they made last year. They paid 45 million in tax on 1.5 billion US dollars. 1 billion is 1,000 million, by the way, for those of you who are great at maths. They paid 45 million on 1.5 billion. We must do better. I don't see anything in any manifesto to change this happening. I don't care who's in charge in Trinidad, whether it be the PNM, the UNC, or if the NAR made a return. I'd say the same thing, because this is about the people of Trinidad and Tobago. If we're not taxing the rich, if we're not taxing the wealth, if we're not, corruption still at play in Trinidad, and these people are allowed to get away with it, we will remain in exactly the same position we are. And in 4 years' time, you'll be crying and moaning exactly like you are now about the government and about the lack of changes that hasn't happened. You're expecting a lot from these people, and rightly so. You are expecting a lot from these people. Unfortunately, I don't believe you are going to see those changes that you so deserve and you so are desperately in need of. It's a shame. It's a crying shame, because the potential is huge for us. It's there, but we need the change that we need. I don't see it coming anytime soon. Not with this current regime. Sorry to burst your bubble. Sorry to be on such take such a negative tone. But this, for me, is the reality. This, for me, is the reality. So you could click back on this video in a year time and say, oh, Nigel did say that. He did predict that. Just like I predicted the UNC was going to win this election on a protest vote. Exactly what I'm saying now is going to come to fruition if we don't do anything about it. So, this is Trinidad Empowerment Network. I hope you guys resonate with what I have to say. Like, subscribe. About 80% of the people who watch this video are not subscribed. So I would ask you to subscribe. It really does help the algorithm. And that way we can get the message out about what needs to change in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean in general. This is what we need to do. We need to get a message out. You, the people, are the ones who subscribe, like, and put comments. And this is how the message gets out. And the more of us there is on here, the more likely we are to form a formidable pack and finally be heard. So with that, I'm signing out, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Much love. Take care. God bless. Peace.